They're called the Greatest Generation, men and women from all walks of life who grew up in the Great Depression, led our nation to victory in World War II, and helped make America a beacon of freedom and democracy for all the world. And do they have some stories to tell? I'm pleased to be partnering with the New York State Military Museum and Veterans Research Center to preserve the words and memories of many of our World War II veterans. These stories will be entered into the state's archives, where they will be accessible to researchers, academics, and future generations. Our veterans have given so much to help build a brighter future for all Americans. This tribute is just one small way of saying thank you.
I says, look, I want the Marine Corps. You know, I hand went right down. And he said, okay, Marine Corps, stand. That's how I got in.
Why did you choose Marines?
I just liked them better.
Okay.
And I said, I might as well be with the best. That was just my fantasy, you know.
Yeah.
So I met, so then I was put in a platoon, and there was a guy from Buffalo whose name was Hauserman, and he was about my height. So he was right next to me every time we fell out during boot camp. And so I got to know him, and we well, we went to Camp Miramar boot camp, and that wasn't, I guess that was 12 weeks. And then we waited, and we'd assemble in a big, not by squad, I guess we were all in their different squad platoons, and all the Marines were there, and they're called out where they were going to be assigned. So after waiting and waiting, I finally got assigned to a torpedo bomber squadron, and so I went there, and so then from there we got our planes, and then we took off for the East China Sea. And there was the 6th Fleet. Now, we're only going 12 knots. It's fairly slow, and we always have a escort carrier. So that carrier is our protection. And so it was a long trip, and the Pacific Ocean is absolutely beautiful, and I love that flight deck, you know, and the sunsets were the most gorgeous sunsets you could ever experience. And we finally got to the 6th Fleet, and there were 3 other carriers in that huge fleet. And now this was by the time we so there were Navy pilots on the other 3 carriers, and now we have Marine Corps. But of course we took time when the pilots had to learn how to land a carrier. So we were out there, and they were landing and taking off, and I had a job. So it's interesting because, you know, early in the morning we're out there, and the planes are all fired up, and the propellers are going, and the plane. Every plane had a mechanic, or the head mechanic. Now I don't know if he was the one with a CO2 bottle. If there was a little fire, the engine, they could put it out right away. But nobody ever got hit by a propeller, but the danger was always there. And we fired the planes on the catapult, and our captain would not sign, and where everybody got a little promotion, and you got a little extra pay. Because when my pay went out, you know, more than half of it went to my mother, because I had 3 brothers, 3 brothers and a sister. And then, so to help them survive, you know, half of my pay, which is very much. So I ended up like $25 a month. I had to buy my own, you know, toothbrush, toothpaste, all those things. And if I went on Liberty, you know, $25 wouldn't go very far. So anyway, we got to the 6th Fleet, and man, there was 4 big carriers, and I don't know how many cruisers and destroyers and other kinds of ships, and they had these little small boats, and they could emit a cloudy substance, so that huge fleet could be in the cloud, so you couldn't see it. So that was some kind of we could hide in that cloud, but I don't know how much. We never got attacked by any. The Japanese fleet was about gone. Their fleet of ships were almost, you know, destroyed. So we were there at the end, and what we were doing was providing air coverage for minesweeping detail. So they would go over there and protect those minesweepers, and they were, you know, cutting the mines and destroy them. And of course, when we were on our way to the 6th Fleet, every now and then someone would spot a mine, and some sharpshooter, a Navy sharpshooter, probably would be shooting at it, and every one of them had hit just right, and the thing would blow up because they were a danger. And so we were stationed. Our fleet was stationed in Okinawa, in Buckner's Bay. So what we did was, after we did our day's work, the fleet would come in Buckner's Bay and be there cozy for the night. However, the Japanese still had some planes and still had some aerial torpedoes. So we were, I stayed on I was on the flight deck 23 out of 24 hours. And I had no, well, so, because it was not very nice to sleep down there, it was hot and sticky. I would sleep under an airplane, you know, my pillow would be a pair of my shoes. I'd cradle them in my shoes and just sleep under an airplane. And so we'd be in there for the night in Buckner's Bay, the whole 6th Fleet. Or I wouldn't know if all of it, but anyway, there they were, and the the USS Pennsylvania was not very far from our ship. And, you know, like we could look and there it was down there.
What was the USS Pennsylvania? What kind of ship was that?
That was a battleship. Now, in the beginning of the war, the USS Pennsylvania was in Pearl Harbor. And it took a hit and it had to be rebuilt. So here it is near the end of the war. It got rebuilt and it was right there, our neighbor in the water at anchor. We were, the flight deck is 45 feet high, and you could look down there and see it. Well, what would happen? We'd get a signal that says, "Okay, man your battle station." Now, we had guns that we could fire in the daytime. I mean, the quad 40s were right next to me. You know, and they probably did a lot of damage to my ears. The only thing we had a little cotton we put in our ears, no protection like they have now. And
What's a quad 40?
well, it shoots ammunition. We'll say the shell would be about this round, and there would be several, I don't know how many barrels, you know, guns that were in what they call the quad there. I didn't know very much about it. We had two 5-inch cannons in the fantail. You know, the deck. There was a lower deck there, and then of course the flight deck was built up. So we had a hangar deck where you could put airplanes, because they couldn't all fit on the top, on the flight deck. So we lowered some down. When they landed, we took them down, and so we got we were at battle stations, and you were covered with a light white thin covering over our head, and a mask and gloves, because my station was right on the flight deck. Now, when a bomb goes off, there's all this flame and terrific heat, and this would keep you from getting burned from that, unless you got a direct hit. Because you didn't have to be in the war, because there was danger on the ship all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, this one night, because we could look up and could see there's a single, we call him Piss Call Charlie, and that one plane we could see the flames from the exhaust, and they would drop a bomb someplace, and they probably knew what we were doing, so they'd send that one plane, and that battleship took a hit right in near near the engines. 3 engines were damaged. 26 men were killed, and they thought they knew we were there because we had engine trouble, and we were stuck there. But what they did after that is they stayed out in the ocean. They figured they were safer out there, so they didn't come in anymore. But we were there, and
You mean the USS Pennsylvania stayed out?
yeah, no, that couldn't move. It was, you know, it only had one engine and one propeller. There were 3 of the 4 propellers, they were damaged.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't see much fighting, because you know, he got hit in Pearl Harbor, now he got hit again, so it was tough luck. And from the flight deck, you know, wherever they landed, you know, they might hit something every now and then, they'd hit something. But we were stuck there at night. But of course, we did a lot of duty before we had this engine trouble. We were out there sending planes out there, you know, before flight, before Reveille.